Hello, everybody. It is great to be here. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the host of the Founders Report with Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've been involved in 17 startups and 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Yva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but the opportunities are not. So with that, I have an incredible guest today, Nadia Fisher. She's built context SaaS companies that work and unlock diversity. She says that language is a tool to drive our culture. The diversifier detects unconscious bias in corporate communications and helps companies develop their own inclusive language. The technology assists us in working against unconscious bias, and we know that part of the challenge today is bias. But for technology to be an improvement of life for everyone, we need to build technology by all and for all. So with that, Nadia is dialing in from Zurich. And so how's everything in Zurich, Nadia?
Yeah, everything's cool. The spring is coming. Everybody's outside drinking aperos, and now here, it's already.
They're drinking what?
Drinking aperitif.
Aperitif, yeah, that's great.
Yes.
Maybe more than just one, yeah?
Well, I didn't drink before, so otherwise I'd be like, woo, no.
Hey, so are you originally from Zurich, or where are you from originally?
Yeah, I actually am from Zurich, but then, grew up here, got really bored, and I traveled the world quite a lot and lived in Chile and lived in Burundi in Africa. So, yeah.
Wait a minute, you lived in Chile? What were you doing in Chile?
I managed a hotel in Chile.
Seriously?
Yes.
And Santiago, where was it?
No, it was actually on the countryside near the border to Argentina. And yeah, it was very, in between the volcanoes, it was very nice.
Wait a minute. What made you decide to do that?
I got really bored of my job that I had at that time here in Switzerland, which was a business developer and retail business. And then I thought I really have to do something totally else. And yeah, and I knew Chile from before from a world trip. And then I thought, okay, let's go there. And took the whole family. We all moved there and, managed that hotel.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And you said there was volcanoes around you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very beautiful volcanoes. I would go anytime there again in this region. It's
Why not?
really
Were these active volcanoes?
no. The last one was active 10 years before that, but then got really calm. But then, in these regions you never know, right? And especially now with all the changes, they become active again.
Now, how long were you living there?
Just a year, not too long.
So was there anything unusual that you saw there? Was there anything interesting? What was the most interesting thing that you saw?
Yeah, I mean, it was super interesting because that time Chile, so that was in 2010. Chile was like the upcoming country in South America, very stable. And you could feel actually the economy growing. Like, before Chileans didn't even have enough money to go travel. And when we were there, suddenly this came wash, and all the Chileans were traveling their own country, discovering their own regions. And I thought that was really nice to see an economy in full growth.
Wow, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
so you did that, you managed a hotel, and what did you do next?
Well, then I got back to Switzerland and
Right.
I said, okay, now I have to. I didn't want to move back into retail. I thought it was really boring. And so I had to find a new job. And I kind of felt, tech is where it happens, right? And so I kind of had to find a way into the tech industry. And, in Switzerland, it's not so easy to change careers as in the US.
Why is that?
I think that's still this traditional thinking that, you've made an education and then you stay in this kind of field. And it's very hard to jump over from one industry to the other. It's not so well seen. Luckily now it's changing, but at that time 10 years ago it was still hard. But then I found my way through digital media and into IT project management, and since then I'm really happy in this field.
Okay, so you went there. You said you were in Africa too?
Yeah, in Burundi.
Okay, what made you decide to go to Burundi?
Okay. It's funny, but that was in 1994, so a very long time ago. It was after my high school. Again, I wanted to experience something special, and I knew an architect living in Burundi. And at that time, I wanted to study architecture. So I said, can I come over for half a year? And I lived there half a year. It was a really interesting time. It was actually just before the genocide happened. So you could feel that politically, the whole destabilization of the country.
And how was it? What was it like? What happened? How could you tell?
Well, you could tell because when I arrived, you could see that in the bars and on the street, Tutsi and Hutu were still, living together. And then during the time I was there, I had very good friends who were Tutsi. I got invited to different parties where you could suddenly see former militaries being in the corner and discussing together. And you could feel it was a kind of weird.
Really? So they were in the corner talking?
Yeah, I mean, it was all in Kirundi, right? I couldn't understand the thing. But yeah, you could feel that something was up. And then suddenly it was like so the architect I work with, he said, if something happens, just go to Novotel, which it was the French main hotel there, because that's where you're the most protected. I'm like, what's going on,
They said that to you?
Huh?
They said go to Novotel?
Yeah. Exactly. That's where all the ambassadors and all the diplomatic staff would go in a case of a crisis. I left Burundi before it got really bad. Anyway, so I wasn't planning to stay there. But it was really hard afterwards. When I left, I heard my friends telling, how many dead people are on the street and stuff. It was really hard to take.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, so you went down through and you went to Gustav Kaiser Training International. And I mean, you did Scrum. Then you worked for the Federal Department of Defense as a policy advisor. How did that work? How did you come up to
Well, I studied international relations in Geneva, so where Kofi Annan also studied. And at the last year of my studies, I actually specialized in disarmament of light weapons, like small arms and light weapons. At that time, it was a thing. There was just a big conference on anti-personal landmines, and then they all realized, what's killing the most people is actually the small arms and light weapons. So I specialized in this, and for the Department of Defense, I was actually the specialist in this. And together with the Foreign Office, we defined the Swiss policy in this area and went to negotiate big conventions at the UN and the OSCE and NATO.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Wow, you got a wonderfully broad life. So, okay, so you go down through and do that for a couple of years. Then you go to Nuance Group. What was that all about?
Yeah, that was the business development job I was saying for retail, for duty-free retail, actually.
For duty-free, and then you go to your hotel in Chile. And did you speak Spanish or no?
Sí, claro.
So you went down. That's great. And then you went back to John Lay Solutions. What's that all about?
So what they did is digital signage. So, when you're in a shop and instead of having just posters, they'd have big screens where you have the advertisement going on. And that's where I did the sales part. That was a real hard sales job. It was like driving several hours a day, going into the meeting, quickly sell your thing, go out, drive again 2 hours. It was the old way of selling things.
Wow, the old way. And then Kaiwa, what was that all about? So the QR code services, what is that?
Yeah, QR code came up beginning of when was it, about 2010, something like that, or 2008 maybe. And this was a startup founded here in Switzerland, but they quickly went to San Francisco, and I was working there as a CMO in order to make it known. So I was sometimes in San Francisco.
So you were going back and forth.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you left there. You spent only 1 year there, right?
Yeah, exactly. I realized that QR code wasn't my thing. That's not where my heart was. You have to identify.
Well, sounds like it's got to be a little exciting, or you're not interested. So you went to Leap. Is that what that is?
Yeah, Leap is a web agency here in Switzerland. They're pretty big for Swiss size, right? They're like 200 people.
Really?
um, and yeah, that's where I became Scrum product owner. So for me, Scrum was really a life discovery. I suddenly realized how people can work together. We know each one with their specialty, and I really loved it. And since then, I really work with an agile mindset. That's where also I got to know our co-founder, my partner, our CTO. We work together there at Leap. He as a software architect and me as a Scrum product owner.
Wow. And then what made you decide to go to PwC?
I guess I wanted to kind of work again at a big corporate. That feeling of yes, I want to move really like go into the corporate and try to change the culture within, because that was actually their idea. They wanted to build up an experience center focused on agile software development, and with the experience I had as a Scrum product owner and agile coach. They got me, and we built the experience center together. Unfortunately, I must say it didn't work in the end. The cultures were just too different. There was a real culture clash between what we built and what PwC normally does.
And so why was it? Because you were in it. What, were there a lot of politics involved?
Yeah, a lot of politics. And then, I guess PwC is really used to clear processes. I mean, they also have to, right, as a consulting company, because of all the compliance. So already when we proposed that with clients, we wouldn't have normal contracts, but agile contracts, they were like, what is this? So we had to reformulate all these contracts, go through, I don't know how many approvals. But also in general, just, I guess they're very used to, you have the scope, you fix the scope, you fix the budget, right? And this is not how agile software development works.
So what happened? How was it when you would sit down with them and they didn't get it? How long did it take before you understood that they weren't going to buy into it and there was going to be political pressure and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we worked really hard. So it was a team of 4 of us, like in the leadership team, and we had like 50 people employed in that experience center. And the 4 of us had all a very agile mindset. So we really tried, like during half a year, we built it up, and then we really tried during like half a year to convince them and make them understand what it means. And yeah, I get like after that year, we kind of realized, okay, it's not going to work out, and everybody left actually in the end.
Wow, that's amazing. And they're supposed to be agile, right?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit. Also, when you see, because
Maybe leaving like that's being agile too, though, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, so you go there, and then you did some mentoring at CV Labs, right? What was that all about? A blockchain incubator?
Yeah, I mean, that was just a little task I had. It's a blockchain incubator, as you say, and they got me because I was telling them more about diversity and inclusion. What does it actually mean if you start out as a startup? What do you have to make sure that diversity, inclusion, you've got that in your DNA from the very start? And that's why I mentored these different startups.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so now let's go to where we are today. Tell us about how did you come up with the idea of Witty Works, and talk about the enabling companies in STEM field to attract, recruit. Tell us what that's all about.
Yeah, sure. I mean, myself working in tech, I just realized that diversity is really missing, and that we are building a lot of apps and solutions that do not cater for a lot of needs out there in the world. And that worries me, especially also because I have kids and I have a daughter.
You say what? It doesn't cater to what? The needs?
Well, to the needs of so many different populations, right? I think if the teams are very homogeneous, we forget about many needs that are also out there. And that's why I really stand for diversity, to get all the perspectives in, and to, as you do, right, with GSD Ventures as well, you get ideas from the whole world, because there's much more to solve than what we see in a certain country or within a certain region even. And I really wanted to change that. And in the beginning, when I didn't work with our CTO yet, I did diversity consulting and just realized that it doesn't work. It's like companies pay diversity programs, but often the discourse in these workshops get very politicized. People hear it, but then they forget about it again.
Really? So what do you mean it gets politicized? So they're just doing it because they have to do it, not because they want to do it?
Yeah, or in these workshops, you maybe have 20 people and 2 are really against it because, I don't know, they feel offended or they don't want to go with it. They don't want to unlearn what they've learned so far. And they start to really grasp the whole discourse and make it a very political discussion instead of building a learning environment,
So
right?
tell me about that. That's interesting. Like, give us an example of what it would be.
Well, if you're, for example, saying, hey, let's talk about privilege. And then if you have a good learning environment, everybody says, yeah, okay, actually, you know what? I'm a man mid-age, so probably it's pretty cool for me in the career area because people employ me very easily. Somebody else says, like me, I have my last name is Fischer. That's a very common name, very easy when I apply somewhere. And then those two who want to politicize, like, I don't have a privilege. I worked like crazy. I've all earned this, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sure, you work a lot and we all work like crazy, but it's still the case that we have privilege. And when you have such people going into the discourse like this, everybody kind of pulls back. It's not a safe space anymore to learn. And that's why often these trainings just don't work.
And yep, the companies have the trainings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do they have them if they know they're not going to work, Nadia?
Well, and that is really weird. I think on the one hand, they just have to do something today. The pressure is really on that they do something in diversity inclusion. I mean, as a big company, Fortune 500, you have to do something. And actually 99% do diversity programs. And even in medium and mid-sized enterprises in the US, 50% do something. So, but and this Harvard has really made studies about this. Do these diversity programs work? And they found out that mostly it doesn't work. Actually, even diversity even decreases if you do such diversity programs. So they're counter.
Why is that?
Yeah, I think again because bias works very weirdly. Is that we think, oh, now we've learned something. I've got more intelligent, and now I'm more aware of it. But the fact is actually because you are more aware of it, you fall into an expert bias. And the expert bias clearly said those people who think they know better actually do worse.
Seriously? That's amazing.
Yeah.
So they think they know how to fix it, but they don't have a clue, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And yeah. So this is where we said, okay, you know what, we have to do something different, right? And also something that can be scaled within the companies, because diversity programs you can't really scale. I mean, you have a company of 250,000 employees. How do you want to scale that? And yeah, that's when we said, let's do software in this, I guess. And we needed to find something. We needed to find a transport media for the whole bias awareness. Mm-hmm. Where you work with on a daily basis. And this is how we got to language.
So tell me a little bit about it. So what do you do when you go into an organization and how does it work? So how do you help them?
Yeah, so what they do, they install our browser plugin. And the browser plugin is like an inclusive writing assistant, meaning wherever you are writing in a web-based interface, while you are writing the words that are not inclusive, so that can either deter certain people or can even discriminate certain people, and often in an unconscious way, right? These terms get highlighted. And then the algorithm proposes to you other alternatives, how you could write it so you really write inclusively, meaning without deterring anyone. And then it also gives you background information about the bias behind that word. So there's a little micro-learning bite every time the tool pops up. So if you have no time, you can just write inclusively by choosing the alternatives. And if you have a little bit more time, you can actually consume these micro-learning bites and learn about your own bias. And that step by step can change your behavior. And because it's a machine telling you, you do not get into the defensive, right? It's also, we have more trouble getting critique from a human than from a machine, which is actually very sad, but it's a fact.
At least today, anyhow.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you get into this, so give us an example. What kind of thing, what would it correct? Let's talk about what kind of things that are biased in there that you see happening a lot.
Right. So we check the different diversity dimensions, and one of them is gender, naturally. Now, you tell me English is a gender neutral language, and that's true. Linguistically, yes, it is. But if I tell you, for example, the riddle, hey, a CEO says, I am not his father, but he's my son. Who is it?
I am not his father, but I'm not his father, but his mother.
Exactly, it's the mother. Very well. But and that is something people kind of have to think twice, but we're talking about a CEO, and what happens here in inside of the brain is actually the word CEO has a bias, meaning the inner image that pops up in front of our inner eye is very quickly a man, because we were socialized in that way, right? There's more men in CEO positions until now than women. And this image we have learned, and it pops up in our head without us realizing. And that's why we have trouble solving this riddle so easily. So
Nadia, I have a question for you. So now we have transgender and everything else, where everything gets really mixed up. How in the heck? I mean, I got the thing with the mother, and that's cool. But how do you go down through now with these new paradigms, right?
Yeah, and we're all confused about it.
You know what I mean? Well, how do you know who's who?
Yeah, and we're all confused about it, aren't we?
I had a situation occur where I went into an office and met somebody that was had a very high executive position. And I talked to them on the phone, and they had a very deep, I mean, it was a guy's voice, right? But it wasn't a guy when I got there. It would, and I heard the voice it sounded like Elizabeth Holmes on steroids. It was deep voice. And but it was interesting. And I didn't know, honestly, I didn't know how to address the person. To be honest, I had no clue.
Yeah.
I didn't know,
Yeah.
So how do we deal with those kind of things?
Yeah, and that's exactly what our tool does, because we're all confused about what words we still can use, what words we shouldn't use anymore, not only when it comes to gender, but also when it comes to people of color, when it comes to people with disabilities, right? All different diversity dimensions. And that's exactly what the tool does. It gives you this help. How can you formulate something in order to really respect everyone? So in the gender, naturally, what we would propose.
Oh, that's why they have he, she, and all that, right? Like
so you just use the singular they. Just use the singular they, right?
They, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what kind of customer traction do you have today?
Well, so far we have 32 contracts, and they're the really big brands. So Microsoft is a client of us, and we're really happy about that, naturally, but also Intel. Yeah, that's really cool. They're really into diversity and inclusion, and they saw our tool and thought, okay, this is what we want to use. Also, like Deloitte, Accenture, Deutsche Bahn, naturally here, they're big in Germany. That's actually the biggest employer in Germany. And we offer our tool in English and in German, and that's really nice, because we see for the European countries, naturally, other languages are very important, and gendered languages are even more complicated than the neutral languages. And the traction is we've got so far 23,000 MRR. We have our freemium out, and that grows nicely on a weekly basis of 7%. It's like not woo yet, but we haven't done any advertisement yet. We just launched it now in
What was that again? It's not what yet?
It's not woo yet.
Okay. It's not woo, but it's growing at 7%. You got over 20,000 in MRR. What are you trying to do now? What's the next step of this? So, were you raising money, or where are you going with?
Yeah, exactly. So now we're raising money. in order to scale our premium. So we've got the, as I said, the first customers acquired, but now we really want to scale it. And that's what we raise our money for. Also, what we see is naturally the very big corporates like banks and consulting companies, insurances, they still have some issues on privacy and data protection. Especially in Europe, it's worse than in the United States, but still. And we still have to build out the corporate product, the Witty enterprise. And that's also what we'll invest in.
And how much you're trying to raise today?
2.2 million. And
so
we would like
in euros or dollars?
That's in dollars. And with that investment, next to the build out, I said we'll reach an MRR of 250,000. And we would like to raise that with safes in order to be really quick, because we need to focus fully now on the scaling of the premium.
All right, so 2.2 million in safes to get you to 250,000 MRR, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Okay, so closing thoughts, and how can people get a hold of you?
Well, contact me on WittyWorks or just write to me directly. Very happy to hear from you. And closing remarks is really, Witty is the new standard for language. We make de-biased language. It doesn't exist so far yet. All the other frameworks do have bias, and we build it with our technology, and we build it together also with associations that are specialists in certain diversity dimensions. So we're really happy also to make sure that we got the legitimacy from all these different movements, and it's not just an idea out of our brain.
No, it's great. So you remember, stay smart with Witty.
Exactly. Cool.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Nadia, for coming today. I really appreciate it. Thank Hasmic and the entire LaToken team for making the Founders Report with Gary Fowler possible. My name is Gary Fowler, and I am the host. I am the CEO, president, and co-founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studio, premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. To all of you out there, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy. And may this bring some peace to the world. Take care of yourselves, and thanks a lot, Nadia. Thank Hasmic, and thank the entire team.